16 million Americans served in World War II. About 1 million of them saw sustained combat. When they returned, they were celebrated as heroes, parades, Tickertape, the greatest generation. But, something happened in those homes that nobody talked about. The men who had stormed beaches and liberated camps came home and went silent. They didn't complain, they didn't cry, they didn't tell their sons what they had seen. They became the strong, silent type. Hollywood gave us a template. The cowboy who doesn't talk about his feelings. The sheriff who carries the weight alone. We treat that stoicism as if it was always there. As if American men were just born that way. They weren't. That silence was taught. It was trained into them. And for many, it was a survival mechanism that never turned off. To be effective in combat, a soldier must learn to suppress what he feels. Psychiatrists call it emotional numbing. In basic training, it starts early. You cannot hesitate. You cannot feel too much for the man you are about to kill. You cannot fall apart when your friend dies next to you. James Jones, who wrote From Here to Eternity, understood this. He said that to function under fire, a soldier must think of himself as essentially a dead man. You accept your own death before it happens. Then, you can do what needs to be done. The men who fought in the Pacific, in Europe, in North Africa, they learned to block it out. They had to. There was no other way to survive. E.B. Sledge, who fought on Peleliu and Okinawa, remembered making a pledge to himself. The Japanese might kill him, they might wound him, but they would not crack him up. He would keep it together, no matter what. Some couldn't keep it together. In every unit, there were men who broke. During the Battle of the Bulge, one veteran of the 1st Infantry Division, a seasoned man, simply went to pieces during an artillery barrage, weeping, cowering, unable to move. The official response to battle fatigue was inconsistent. General Patton slapped a soldier in a field hospital and called him a coward, but most psychiatrists understood the truth. Any man could break. The average soldier could tolerate about 180 days of combat before his effectiveness dropped. When the war ended, most psychiatrists believed something else. They thought that once a soldier was removed from danger, his emotional state would return to normal. Remove the stress, heal the man. But, they were wrong. The memories didn't stay buried. James Jones described it as the frozen feet of the soul beginning to thaw, and thawing hurt. Nightmares were common. Some men woke up thrashing, hands reaching for throats that belonged to their wives, not Japanese soldiers. They didn't talk about it in the morning. They just got up and went to work. This is the era we remember as conformist, the organization man, the man in the gray flannel suit. But underneath that conformity was something else. In 1948, a wave of paperback novels hit the stands. They were written by veterans, for veterans. Mickey Spillane's I. The jury featured a private detective who was violent, damaged, and utterly unable to connect with normal life. Tennessee Williams, who was not a veteran but watched the world around him, gave us Stanley Kowalski. Another damaged man. Primal, volatile, terrifying to the polite society around him. Hugh Hefner, who served in the army, started Playboy in 1953. One historian suggests the magazine was partly intended as medicinal, a way to help men get comfortable in their new civilian lives, to alleviate the stresses of the repressive 1950s. Aaron George, in his recent study of post-war masculinity, argues that the war broke down traditional markers of manhood. Bravery, stoicism, competitiveness, these had been tested in combat and found hollow. What replaced them for some veterans was a search for authenticity, for genuine connection, especially with other men who understood. Writers like James Jones, Stuart Stern, and Edward Field used their work to explore what they had lost and what they still needed. Stern wrote Rebel Without a Cause, a film about boys searching for fathers who couldn't tell them how to be men. The silence was passed down. The fathers couldn't speak, the sons couldn't ask, and a template for masculinity hardened into something rigid. We still honor these men. We should. They did things most of us cannot imagine. But we misunderstand them if we think the silence was natural. It was learned, it was trained, and for many, it was a cage. The strong, silent type is not a timeless ideal. It is a specific response to a specific moment in history. 16 million men came home. Millions of them carried something they never learned to name. Scholars today are finally asking what those men really felt, what they really needed, what they might have said if the world had been ready to listen. The silence is almost over now, the generation is leaving us, but the template they left behind, the idea that men should not speak, should not feel, should not ask for help, that template is still here. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.